Financial technology is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank all of the witnesses that are here today. Thank you very much, and the ones who are joining us online as well. I share the representation of the city of Boston, so my situation is quite similar, the same actually as Ms. Presley outlined, where we have, the median rent now is around $3,000 a month for a one-bedroom. I think the average housing cost right now for a single family is somewhere around $770,000, so far above what the national average is. My own background, I grew up in the old colony housing projects in South Boston. At the time, it was among the poorest, predominantly white census tracts in the United States. So we struggled, and my views on housing policy are necessarily shaped by that experience. I saw how my mom and dad struggled. I saw how they had a real hard time raising myself and my 5 sisters, trying to provide a safe place for them, a stable environment. And it seems like things have gotten worse. We were at the very bottom of the economic ladder, and we struggled for housing. But now I see people who are working, who would I think commonly be referred to as middle class, yet because of the exorbitant prices of housing, they're being forced out. I think we had a good start with Hope 6, and I know that Jack Kemp, a Republican, was one of the early architects of that program. Now we have one program that was started by the Obama administration called the Choice Neighborhoods Program that actually tries to build mixed income. One of the problems that I have, and I represent a lot of people in public housing, those same housing projects, it's been renamed the Lynch homes at Old Colony in memory of my mom. But we still have the same problem. People are struggling. And the new model tries to bring in private money to partner, this Choice Neighborhood Program, to build mixed income, so middle income or workforce, so-called workforce housing. And I'm just wondering, Mr. Holtz-Eakin, we're struggling with this idea of rent control again. The mayor of Boston is looking at it because she doesn't have many options, and I understand that. But I'm old enough to remember the previous iteration of rent control that was a disaster. Mm-hmm. It caused disinvestment and the lack of development of housing. So I just wonder, Mr. Holtz-Eakin and Mr. Zandi, from an economic standpoint, is that the model? Is that the type of model that will succeed if we can, if we can sort of get buy-in from middle income people, as well as those who want to help people at the bottom of the ladder? Is that the model that will succeed in generating this 4 million units of housing that we need to create?
Well, I feel pretty confident that a rent control approach won't solve the problem.
Yeah.
And I say that respectful of the testimony of Mr. Mitchell. I mean, you can probably write down on a blackboard a price stabilization approach that works, but I'd be skeptical that we can make it work in every community in America. So I'd prefer to find ways to get private capital into and increase the access to that cheap capital. I think I'll let Mark speak for himself, but he's talked about that on a number of occasions. And whether it's tax-based incentives that draws that capital in or others, I don't have a religious attachment to any of them. We need to get greater capital in to provide affordable housing. That's the key.
Yeah. Mr. Zandi?
Yeah, in a long list of things that we can and should do to help these low-income households be able to afford a home, rent stabilization, rent control would be all the way at the bottom of the list. I'd be very, very cautious about going down that path. Very, very difficult to implement in a way that will end up with resulting in more supply. And we need to be focused very carefully on increasing the supply of housing as fast as possible. And rent control, rent stabilization is pretty difficult to implement to make that effective. The other thing I'd say is, there are a lot of landlords out there. There are the institutional landlords, but in many cases, the landlords we're talking about here for these kind of lower income households in these communities that we're trying to help, they're mom and pop. They're middle class households as well. So you need to keep that in mind. So I don't know that I'd go down that path. I go down these other paths where I went down the rent stabilization or rent control path.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Timmons, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you having this hearing. I live in Greenville, South Carolina. I represent Greenville and Spartanburg. We have a major challenge with affordable housing. The city has grown so much. There's been so much people moving into the district. Rents have gone through the roof. Same